be talking through the two-gamer tonight on the NBA slate. It's going to be hard to get different. We've got the play-ins, so you're going to see max minutes out of these guys. Not to mention that I think every team would rather play the 7 versus the 8. Well, you could argue in the East, it doesn't really. They're both just as tough. Although I think Miami can certainly play with Boston. But overall, look on this slate is try to find a way to get different, and it's going to be really, really hard to do. I would basically essentially treat the question marks like they're not even real. There's a few questionable things. That's not going to happen on this slate. So having said that, Sheets, any sort of, I have a strong take on the games, I guess a little more than most people. I just feel very confident in Miami winning, and I feel very confident confident in the Lakers winning, but I don't know about covering. I'm not sure where I stand on that one yet, but I really like Miami and the Lakers to come out on top tonight.
Well, let me start with this as we head into the playoffs here. Everybody's got to just remember that the NBA, more than almost any sport, I mean, the difference between the regular season and the playoffs is just immeasurable, with respect to how much they lean on their guys. There's no, this should be obvious, but there's no load management. There's no rest. There's no whatever. Every game matters. And you could see guys playing 48 minutes, maybe not 48, but you're going to see guys playing as many minutes as they can handle to win these games. And the usage and the points is just going to end up being extremely concentrated. Now, with that said, I mean, listen, if there's a blowout, there's a blowout, and the reserves will get in there because they obviously all else being equal. You do want to rest guys, right? But you have to take care of business. You have to make sure you get your wins. And we have to remember that as we talk about the playoffs and think like, boy, I want to play like the reserve X because I just think he could have a good game based on his medium projection. You know what I mean? Like LeBron and AD, for example, they're not letting anybody shoot the ball. You know what I mean? I shouldn't say that because D'Angelo Russell's there, but conceptually, like the best guys on the team are going to put the team on their backs if at all possible. Yeah. Guys like, and we'll get to it. Guys like Jimmy Butler. Guys like. We talked about it the other day. Donovan Mitchell, guys like that are going to attempt to put the game on their back. So whatever median projection people are coming up with is probably too low for guys like this. Mm-hmm. And that's just, I guess, just something to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's pull up your screen real quick. We'll just go through the games here because that's the best way to do it.
So what are the spreads in these games, by the way?
So you've got I'm trying to get the official one. Okay, so Miami being only 5 feels kind of low, and the Lakers are 8.5.
Lakers are 8.5 point favorite.
I mean, they're missing. They had 2 guys, Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels, both got ejected and are out for this one. So it's going to be weird. I mean, you got Taurean Prince is projected to start, and he's 5.6K. It's pretty nuts. All right, but. Starting with the Atlanta-Miami, I'll just go first real quick. On the Atlanta side, I'm having a little bit of a hard time figuring out what to do here. I think that you have some options for some very low-owned spend-ups, Trae Young being one of them. He's just not going to get owned, and neither is DeJounte Murray. So I'm open to both of those guys. I think Murray would be my preferred one, as we talked about yesterday. I think that they try to take the ball out of Trae's hands. I just wish they didn't make him 8,800. I think you got an argument for Bogdanovich because you're going to need to save money. I think it depends on where you look, but I think I kind of like a Kongwu. The problem is I have a feeling that's going to end up being kind of popular. So if I had to rank my Atlanta guys, I think that I would say probably John Collins, then DeJounte, then Bogdanovich, then a Kongwu probably. Capella's going to have some ownership, but I think I would rather go with a Kongwu here. I think I just think he's a better player right now. And on the Miami side, basically everybody who gets a minute is going to be owned because this is where you can find little bits of value. I'm sort of tempted to take the value shots on Kevin Love, and Kyle Lowry is going to be probably the highest owned player on the slate because of his price. I would encourage people to maybe just play Gabe Vincent, who's actually starting instead. But I do think Vincent or Lowry are two value that you can use. And then I'm taking Butler, but I also think Bam is interesting. I like the matchup a lot more, obviously, for Miami than I do for Atlanta. And then Tyler Hero is just too cheap. So all of these guys are obviously in play, but you're not going to get anything all that different on the Miami side. I think it's good to pick an angle because I mean, as of right now, like Kyle Lowry is looking like he's going to be 80% owned. And I don't think that you have to do that with Gabe Vincent with a 3-point differential in the projection and Gabe Vincent at 1/3 the ownership. I think that's what I would be inclined to do, especially because he's starting. I don't love either of them. It's not fun to play Gabe Vincent. He could be out there for a bunch of minutes and do nothing, but that's how Kyle Lowry is too. So just given the ownership factor, I'll play him, but probably it's going to want you to build like 2 Miami guys, like one of Butler and Hero or Bam. I guess that Hero is probably the more obvious play. So maybe you play Bam instead. I think he's a little lower owned, but I do think you're playing one of those guys with Jimmy Butler. And I think it's a very logical way to build.
Yeah, so I don't know what Miami's going to do with the guard. They're going to start Gabe Vincent,
They've been doing it consistently, so I'm going to assume it's the same.
Bring Lowry off the bench. Is Oladipo boxed out of the rotation now?
He's basically got he's got like a 2-point fantasy projection tonight.
Okay.
Probably a little too clever, but maybe not. Like it takes a certain game script, but these teams can play again. Like if Miami's up by like 20. It's just he's got a lot of guys to play, like Caleb Martin, Kyle Lowry. He's behind like 5 guys on the depth chart. It's going to be hard for him to play much.
No, I don't even look at the projection. I'm just trying to think about what listen, now it's the playoffs. Like, what are they actually going to do? You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay. I think Butler is obviously, something to consider. And now to remind everybody, so these teams don't necessarily have to win today, but if they don't, they have to win the second time.
Yeah, if they win, they're in. If they lose, they have to play the play-in for the 8th spot.
Okay. Well, they're definitely going for it, obviously.
Oh yeah, they're gunning for it. It's just
so Butler is my favorite, followed by Bam, followed by Hero. That's the way I'm looking at Miami, and I'm in a must-win, basically a must-win type game. I just find it hard to believe that Lowry does not get minutes. You know what I mean? Like. He's going to be really popular. And then I'm looking at here. He hasn't played over 25 minutes in like a long time.
Yeah, and those are all very important games down the stretch.
Yeah, so maybe it's just, maybe that's where you have to fade. He's going to be like really, really popular, like you said. And if he gets 25 fantasy points, maybe that doesn't beat you. You know what I mean? It's possible. So I would start with Butler, and then I guess Bam would be next, and then Hero. And I would not worry about playing guys together and stuff like that. Play whoever you want, really. And the other guy that you mentioned on the Atlanta side was the Okongwu. And I'm getting some of that also. And I don't know exactly how I feel about that. Trey at 10K, like you said, no one's going to play him, and it's kind of a tough matchup, but it's only 2 games. You know what I mean? Like it's a 2-game slate. And
it's hard to find the money around playing the spend ups today.
I mean, maybe they'll take the ball out of his hands, but maybe they don't. I mean, I don't know. But they probably will, though. So maybe DeJounte Murray is the idea. I mean, I don't see him getting much ownership either. So. Maybe DeJounte Murray or Bogdanovich is the play. Now, as far as other values, again, like a 2-game slate, I think DeAndre Hunter is going to get just a ton of minutes here, just because they need defense in games like this. I don't know if he's going to be, they don't want to rely on him for scoring or anything like that. So I don't know how many fantasy points he can get as a result. But maybe it's enough minutes where maybe it keeps Bogdanovich from getting on there too much. I don't know. I'm trying to, again, I think it's kind of fun for playoffs is to kind of figure out game scripts a little bit and see what these teams are willing to do.
Playoffs, I agree. I feel like play-ins are much more difficult.
Okay.
Just because I think that it doesn't necessarily need to be an all or nothing. Like if Minnesota's down by 25 in the third, I mean,
That's
what's that?
Yeah.
So I think they will be will be okay packing it in, knowing they get 2 players back for the next game and they get to host it. So yeah. Speaking of which, of the Minnesota, look, early in the season, I watched Cat destroy Anthony Davis twice, and I thought Anthony Davis like literally looked like he was done. He's played great, Anthony Davis, lately. I am completely good with whichever one people want to choose between Cat and Edwards. As of right now, I think I have Cat as the preferred one. And I think that you could play a game script with this game and say, okay, it has to be one of Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Jalen Noel. The problem is there's 3 guys who are all projected to eat up the usage, but it's not going to go that way. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jalen Noel, and Jordan McLaughlin. I would side with Noel, assuming that he's healthy. He's a Q tag, and I think it's a genuine Q. If he's out, I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a really, really good play. No matter what, though, I'm probably going to force in one of Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Jalen Noel and play a game script Laker blowout type of thing. You know what I mean? Just because it's the only way I can find to get really off the board in a way that makes sense from a game script standpoint on this whole slate, to be honest. The Lakers are priced up for different reasons in so many spots. It's really hard to justify a lot of these things. And you're going to have like an unowned LeBron James. You're going to have an unowned Anthony Davis. They're really unowned Anthony Davis. It's really hard to even justify playing players in the Lakers. What I would say is maybe you take, and forget the revenge narrative part of it, but just take a shot with Malik Beasley at 4,600 at no ownership. Now, again, it sort of plays in. Maybe that's how your blowout run goes. You play a Beasley with Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Jalen Noel. And I think that's all you really need to do to get different. Now, can it pay off? It might be kind of tough, but there is a path for that, right? Like there is a chance that Beasley comes in there, gets hot, and then just stays on the court because he's hot. I think it's a really reasonable shot to take. And I think you could make a similar argument for Schroeder. He's going to have a little bit of ownership. Beasley was just going to have none. The problem is no one wants to take any minutes away from Austin Reeves. But if they get that blowout run, Malik Beasley could shoot himself into a big night. So I'm sort of talking myself into the Beasley versus Alexander Walker or Noel on the other side at the Laker blowout possibility. What do you think about that?
All right. So the cool thing about it being a 2-game slate is that I can say whatever I want and no one can criticize the play.
Right.
So I'm going to go with a direct price pivot, or almost a direct price pivot off of Lowry, different position, but I'm going to go with Rui Hachimura at 4,100. I've just seen him put up fantasy points before, and I think he's a guy that they would leave in. You know what I mean? Like if it was a blowout as well.
Yeah, he may not play other than that, but they definitely would leave him in. He's really. I would say he's like 9th in the depth chart for them in real.
But he's over 20 minutes every game.
He's been over 20 minutes some of the games. That was he had the overtime game against Utah. That's true. Yeah, fair enough.
2 games. 2 games.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
2 games and save money. You know what I mean? Whatever. So I think the Cat's the best play on the slate with price and all that stuff. I have no problem playing Cat and Edwards together. I also have no problem stacking this game if I could figure out how to do it.
It's really hard to do.
You know, like I just put in, for example, just whatever 3 of them. I put in Conley, Edwards, Towns, and I played Davis, Hachimura, and still I'm 3,300.
Yeah,
per man. So that's obviously going to be somewhat tough. But instead of Davis, for fun, what does LeBron do for me? He saves me only 300, right? So not doesn't really help me all that much. I think that if this game stays close, this game is going to score a lot more points than the Atlanta-Miami game.
You know what's funny is the totals are actually very similar.
Are they really?
Miami's defense is not quite what it used to be, and the Lakers' defense has been one of the best in basketball lately. So just throwing that out there.
Okay.
Not
it's amazing for that to be the case with D'Angelo Russell and LeBron James on the court.
Yeah. I mean, well, Anthony Davis, if he played enough games, there's a lot of talk. He and Vanderbilt and even Reeves to some extent, but he and Vanderbilt especially just make you a totally different team defensively because they're so switchable and they can sort of they can both guard like a guy and a half, which is sort of what you need to do when LeBron and D'Angelo Russell are out there. I don't mind your Rui idea. I like the Beasley idea. You go for Rui, it's fine with me. They're similar types of thought processes. What I like about Beasley is he's got multiple avenues, and he can absolutely, get there with LeBron and the other guys on the court if he gets hot. He's just that kind of a heat check guy. Just harder for me to envision the Rui stuff. And I think that Vanderbilt against his former team is going to play a decent number of minutes at least. Depending on who they'll probably put him on Kyle Anderson. I guess they put him on Edwards. It's interesting to try and figure out some of these. The one thing that's weird is that because they're so short in Minnesota, like if there is any foul trouble to Karl Anthony Towns, the other thing we didn't talk about is the fact that either Luka Garza or Nathan Knight will probably end up getting minutes if he's in foul trouble, because to match up with AD, who they don't, the next biggest guy they have, put Kyle Anderson as their 5. They could try that. It's going to be tough. So those would be two other weird.
That's exactly what I had fired up here to talk about next. Is Nathan Knight and Luka Garza. So which of these guys would you imagine would be the direct backup?
Neither. The direct backup is Kyle Anderson.
So Anderson would play 5. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's what they've done. And it's always hard when you look at guys who haven't played a minute in a while. I don't even have Luka Garza on here. Is he even on the roster for tonight? I don't know what's going on. I gotta have to double check that before live. But
so who else can get blowout run here? So can Lonnie Walker get back into the rotation or no?
No, I mean not enough to where I'm gonna take
Troy Brown Jr.
No, I mean that's the kind of guy you want to play when he's playing with the studs, but. Yeah, it's possible. Troy Brown, but it's just like I wouldn't want to play no usage guys in that kind of blowout run necessarily because somebody's going to have the ball. I'd rather play the guys who have the ball, which would be Beasley. I mean, Lonnie Walker is the 7th guard they have, like 6th. Right. I guess 5th or 6th now, actually. Now that I look at it, Beasley, Schroeder, Russell, Reeves. Yeah, it's always depending on what you call LeBron. And I just want to point out again that the. Let me just see Karl Anthony Towns really quick, because I think that I'm just trying to find if there's any way I can get anything. What is interesting is they have all these guards, and nobody's playing any of the guards. And there's a chance that they could go small and Taurean Prince gets played out. Maybe. I'm just trying to talk myself into it. Maybe then you get Nickeil Alexander-Walker. What's sad is you probably end up with Austin Rivers there some of the time. Maybe not. I don't know if they'll play him.
There's no real good cheapos here, huh?
No, they gave us no value, and that's why Lowry's going to be 100% owned. Or not 100, but you know what I mean.
That's why he's going to be 100% owned.
And he can't quite be 100 because I'm going to do everything in my power to fade him.
He'll be 99.9 if I have anything to do with it.
All right, sounds good. Well, I'll be live later to talk a little bit more in depth about this, in case we hear anything. And also starting lineups for the second game are kind of Taurean Prince is like 90+% to start instead of these guys, but it's not absolutely a lock. They haven't announced it yet. He's going to, but I'm just saying there's a chance for Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Jalen Noel if they're willing to play Noel. I just need to dig a little further on that one. Anyway, guys, it should be a fun one. Nice to have multiple sports going for that aren't quite as stressful with just the 2 gamers. So. Yep. Sheets, let's get it tonight. And